LSU drops their first series of the year. It took this long. It took 7 weekends. Auburn, was a very hot team. We were talking about them last week, getting 2 out of 3 against the number 3 overall team, the South Carolina Gamecocks. And then this week, they do the same thing. Now, this was a weekend of what ifs for LSU, but you got to tip your cap to Auburn. I mean, they're just one of the hottest teams in the country. And I think that if they can continue this, they play at Ole Miss this weekend. If they get 2 or 3, maybe even a sweep, and they can definitely get to that threshold of being that top 16 national seed. But let's go on to LSU side before we focus on Auburn's side. So LSU in game number 1, Paul Skeens does Paul Skeens things. Once again, he was the SEC pitcher of the week. So congratulations to the former Air Force Academy cadet. He threw 14 strikeouts this weekend. Trey Morgan got the offense going with a 2-run home run in the first. And then after that, the offense on Saturday, they had their chances. Ty Floyd was throwing marvelous baseball. He threw 9 strikeouts. And then they had all this debacle about who got thrown out. Was it the video scout guy? Was it Josh Jordan? In the end, it was Josh Jordan who did get thrown out. Don't know the reason why. I'm guessing we'll never know that. But LSU had multiple times with the bases loaded to get across some runs, but Auburn was able to do that. And then on Sunday, Christian Little just didn't have his stuff. 6 walks in that inning, and he got out of that first inning as well. They had to bring in like 3 pitchers in an inning. Auburn got up 6-1. And then after that, Auburn just really sealed the deal. So Auburn's offense was definitely the picture in this one, but you got to give credit also to Auburn's pitching for how they settled down against this high-powered LSU offense. So I know that there's a lot of panic in Baton Rouge today. This is the first SEC series drop. Everyone's questioning the pitching after Paul Skeens. So what are your thoughts on the pitching after Paul Skeens? And it's going to be concerned heading into postseason.
It's definitely concerning to me. I mean, I just feel like we're in this situation every year as LSU baseball fans. This year they did a really good job of recruiting some strong high school talent and getting some transfer portal arms, which I thought might be the solution because those guys are used to pitching the longer college season. And, maybe there wouldn't be as much wear and tear on the pitching staff like we've seen in years past. But some of these high-profile transfers like Thatcher Hurd and Christian Little just haven't really panned out to the level that us LSU fans would have hoped. But I think that Thatcher Hurd is starting to kind of turn the corner, albeit not in a starting role. He's more of a back end of the bullpen kind of guy. Christian Little, he's a guy who LSU just needs to get on track. I mean, he looks completely lost at the moment, didn't even get an out this past weekend. So kind of a rough go for him. I just think if LSU wants to be, the top team or even a top 5 team, somebody's got to step up and be that third guy on Sunday. And Ty Floyd's got to elevate his game as well.
Yeah.
He needs to definitely be a consistent number 2 because if there's a lot of uncertainty at that number 3 spot, we have to have him really take ownership of that number 2 spot, and it'll just be interesting to see who it is. I know there's a few names floating around out there, but I think that is critical for LSU making a run.
Yeah, I definitely agree because if you're going to win in Omaha, you can't just have one starting pitcher. I mean, Ty Floyd's going to have to settle in. He's got the stuff. He showed on Saturday. He 4 through 3.5 innings, he looked untouchable. Like I strikeouts, Auburn was swinging and missing at pretty much every pitch. He was cruising. He was starting to settle in. And that debacle happened. That's no excuse. I mean, you got to be consistent every week. I mean, last week you mentioned I told this to my dad. Like at Ty Floyd at home versus Ty Floyd on the road is just so inconsistent. I mean, on the road, you looked at the Ole Miss start. He went 8 innings. This one, he was looking good, and then all of a sudden the wheels fall off. So you just got to be consistent. And like you mentioned, it was, are we going to see Thatcher Hurd starting to turn the corner? We've seen him in back-to-back outings. In the midweek, he looked good against Southeastern. And then this week, coming out of the bullpen on Friday, to close the deal on Friday night. So there's going to be a lot of tinkering. I feel like that Sunday role is definitely now up for grab. If I was Jay Johnson, I would definitely go away from Christian Little, just put him back in the bullpen and see if he can be a reliable guy, because you do have reliable guys in the bullpen right now. Javen Coleman is one of your guys. Griffin Herring has some struggles this weekend, but he's a freshman. And you also have Gavin Guidry as well. But LSU will now face off against Mississippi State to close out their home SEC regular season, and Auburn will travel to Ole Miss to continue their road to the postseason. They're probably going to be locked in, especially beating two of the top teams in the country. They're definitely a lock. I think that Auburn is a team that you definitely don't want to see in your regional. I think the numbers on the pitching staff is really inflated to them. I think that they're settling in, they're playing at the right time. I think that Auburn not only is going to make some noise in Hoover, but it would not shock me if this Auburn team sneaks into Omaha. They've really been consistent. They made it last year under Butch Johnson. I think that he's one of the most underrated SEC managers in the SEC. So got to give credit to Auburn this week. Two really good back-to-back wins over two quality opponents. That's definitely going to help the resume whenever it comes to Memorial Day weekend. So, all right, let's go on now to Auburn to Alabama. Even amidst that, what do? They take the series at home against number 5 Vanderbilt. So, I mean, it's just, this Alabama team, amidst all this, they're still in the hunt for the postseason. They have 11 conference wins in the SEC, and there's still some work to do. Usually the mark is you got to get to at least 14 SEC wins to get to postseason play, but I think that they're slowly building their resume as well. You would like them to win at least one in Baton Rouge to get to 12 before you have 2 final SEC series. But I think that this Alabama team that make the postseason, even with all this going on, now that you have a clean slate, you don't have a guy betting against your team. You actually have a guy that's going to buy in. You have the pitching coach, interim head coach. So I think this Alabama team, like I mentioned, they're a veteran ball club. They showed it this week that their pitching, especially their closer, that he really dominant pitching staff. So I think that a Vanderbilt team is very in trouble. This is 2 back-to-back series losses. I do think that Vanderbilt has a tough end to the season. They're 17-7 in conference play and just holding on a thread to that number 1 seed and getting to the SEC tournament. So, but some teams on the bottom side of making it to the SEC tournament is Mississippi State and Ole Miss. These are the 2 back-to-back national champions. Mississippi State, like I mentioned at the start of the show, got swept by Arkansas, and Ole Miss continue their struggles to Missouri. And if you watch Sunday's game, it was 20-14. Usually we see that on the football field, but 20-14 on the diamond, there was a lot of home runs. So Mississippi State, like I mentioned, has to go on the road to face LSU, and Ole Miss has to play the team that just beat top two teams, both South Carolina and also LSU as well. So looking at the race for Hoover, you have Missouri at 7-17 in conference, Ole Miss and Mississippi State at 6-18. So when it's all said and done, what 2 teams will ultimately miss Hoover in your opinion?
I don't think it's looking good for the Mississippi schools. Which one's at 13 and which one's at 14th? And how many games separate?
I think the head-to-head wise, Mississippi State, since they won the series.
And they have the same record?
Yeah, they have 6-18 in conference play.
Well, with Mississippi State having to come play an angry LSU team that ideally figures out their pitching and takes at least 2 of the 3, which I'm pretty confident LSU can. I think that Mississippi State will probably end up finishing dead last. Ole Miss, to me, there's still a lot of talent on that roster. This was a preseason top 10 team, so you got to think that they could maybe find some life down the stretch and, maybe split the remainder of their games. I think Mississippi State's still a young bunch, and next year would be a better year for them to contend, but neither one. I don't know if either one makes it to Hoover, but I think Mississippi State does finish dead last. Missouri, I think they're just going to eke in there at the 12th seed. I don't know why. I just feel like I've seen that team play, and I'm kind of surprised they only have 7 or 8 conference wins.
That was a team that started the season sweeping Tennessee, and here they are fighting for their lives in Hoover. But I think that Missouri ultimately will get in, especially since they have the head-to-head. And I think that Mississippi State and Ole Miss are just facing two really hot teams, like you mentioned. Mississippi State has to go to the box to face a pissed off LSU team, and Ole Miss hosts Auburn, which is a very hot team. We'll see if they can keep the bats going. I feel like if they can get to 20 runs like they did in that game 3, they could definitely win that one. But having Hunter Elliott out for the season has definitely hurt that team. Mississippi State's pitching is just abysmal. I mean, they can't find a guy to stop a team from scoring 10 runs a game. So that continued this weekend as Arkansas piled it on the offense. Other notable SEC series this weekend, you had Georgia taking 2 out of 3 at Athens against a red-hot Tennessee team. You had Kentucky sweeping South Carolina. I don't know what's going on in Columbia. That was a team that we were talking about very highly on, and South Carolina is starting to go from a top 8 national seed to now only being a top 16 seed, which you host a regional, but you have to go on the road to a super regional. That's not what they want. And then we also have another one. Texas A&M took 2 out of 3 against Florida. So life on the road wasn't easy. So out of all those 3, which one stood out to you the most?
I think South Carolina just losing back-to-back series. Is it back-to-back sweeps?
I think so. Yeah, they they lost 2 out of 3 to Auburn at home, and then they went on the road this weekend and got swept by Kentucky. Kentucky was the team that lost 4 straight SEC series as well.
Yeah, I think Kentucky was a team that was trending in the wrong direction, but definitely a pesky bunch, and they're a team that can make some noise in Hoover. I think South Carolina is going to be okay. I think they'll rebound over the final 2 regular season series, but I do think that they will continue their struggles at Hoover. Historically, South Carolina does not do very well at Hoover, and I think you're right. That's going to leave them right on the border of a national seed versus maybe being number 9 or number 10. But I think if they're able to win their next 2 series and win a game in Hoover, the resume is there to me for what they did on the season. I think that they'll pencil themselves in as the number 7 or number 8 national seed. But of course, you have to take care of business in your regional, but that would set up a very hard matchup, against a team like Wake Forest, LSU, Arkansas, a team like that.
Yeah, I definitely think out of those 3, I would have to agree with you. I did not see this Kentucky team sweeping South Carolina. And it's not going to get any easier for South Carolina as well. They got to go on the road to an Arkansas team that is playing red hot as well. I mean, if you look at the standings right now in the West, you have LSU and Arkansas at 17-7, and that's going to come down to the wire as well. I think that if Arkansas takes 2 out of 3 or sweeps South Carolina, that's definitely shapes them up as well. But if they only win one of those games while LSU takes on Mississippi State, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, Mississippi State could take 2 out of 3. It's just the beauty of the SEC. It's pretty much like football. Any team can beat you on any given week, and you saw this weekend. Every team that went on the road pretty much lost, except for those Arkansas Razorbacks,